and Rob McGregor welcome you to a place where all kinds of phenomena flourish. Voices whisper ancient secrets, signs and symbols are abundant. UFOs, ETs, ghosts, and even the dead move about freely. Here we meet authors, researchers, and investigators of the mysterious, the strange, and of the inexplicable anomalies that surround us. Step out of the everyday world and take a journey into the mystical underground.
And Trish McGregor.
And our producer and tech magician, John Posey. You can go to themysticalunderground.com where we make regular blog posts and where you can find out about our books. Our most recent nonfiction book is Mind-Blowing Synchronicities, the latest science, stories, and research. Trish's latest novel is White Crows. Rob's latest novel is Tulpas. If you are watching us on YouTube, we would appreciate it if you would take a second to click the like, subscribe, and notification buttons so you never miss an episode. If you prefer to listen to the show, it is available wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe there.
Our guest today is Adrian Ross Duncan, an astrologer and author who lives on an island in the Baltic Sea. And Adrian, I'm sorry, I always forget the name of it.
Yeah, it's Bornholm. So you should check it out on your Google Maps. It's in the really in the middle of the ocean, the Baltic Sea.
Yeah. Rob pointed out that I had said that you lived in the Baltic Sea. Made you sound like a merman.
Well, I'd like to be.
His books are Doing Time on Planet Earth and Astrology, Transformation and Empowerment. He's also developed several astrology apps. His website at AstroWow features provocative articles on current affairs. He speaks regularly at congresses all over the world. Countries where he has spoken: France, Holland, Britain, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, Ireland, Canada, the USA, Australia, and New Zealand. He was last on our podcast in 2020. Welcome, Adrian. It's good to have you back.
Welcome, Adrian.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's so long ago, was it? 4
I
years
know.
ago?
How could that be?
One election ago.
Indeed, yes. I'll see you in 2028.
Right.
So, Adrian, now that the United States is at its first Pluto return, is it shaking out the way you thought?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure what I thought, really. You see, of course, it's not often you get a country with a Pluto return. You have to know, the birth chart of the country. It has to be, if it's something like Russia, it was like in the Russian Revolution, you use that chart, or China, you use the 1949 chart. So it's a really unique thing for America to have this Pluto return. And the Pluto did return in 21, 22, and 23. So now it's over in a sense, you see. But if you take what's happening with the Pluto return, I mean, back 247 years ago or more, that was the Declaration of Independence in America, right? But they were at war with the British. I mean, America, the colonies were occupied by the British Army. So they were at war for 5 years, and it was like 5 years after the Declaration of Independence that the British were kicked out after the Battle of Yorktown. So Pluto was in Capricorn at the Declaration of Independence, but by the time the British were kicked out, it went into Aquarius. And we're right at that stage now. Pluto is actually in Capricorn now. It went retrograde from Aquarius, then it's going into Aquarius again. So that's like the technical side behind it. So America was born in a state of revolution, really, and so the return of Pluto can sort of brings a state of revolution. But I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. If I can carry on,
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, the thing about Pluto in America's chart, it's always in Mercury, and Pluto Mercury is the conspiracy. Every American is kind of open to the idea that maybe a conspiracy somewhere. It's in the American DNA, and so the Pluto return is also a return, also a reactivation of the whole idea of a deep state is the Pluto. Pluto in Capricorn. It's the definition of deep state, right? Mm-hmm. And Mercury. So you've got this kind of powerful but secret people. It's not the government running things. It's a cabal of really, secret, powerful people who are actually running things. And it's a viewpoint. You can't sort of completely discount it. It's just it's a bit of a disempowering viewpoint. So I think the Pluto return has seen this flowering of conspiracy theories.
Well, is that going to end when it goes back? What is it?
No, because America's always got that in its chart. But this has just been a time when it's been possible to propagate information. That's Mercury, or make it up, really. Make up information, and I think there will obviously social media has made that has expanded that like no end, right? And I think that's also Pluto Mercury. But I guess things will change. It won't be such a dominant factor, but in the future.
So is the Pluto return, is that the reason things are so divisive in this country?
Well, I think the divisiveness in America, it's a little bit something else. It's America's supposed to have a Sagittarius ascendant, based on the fourth chart that most astrologers use. And that puts Uranus in Gemini on the descendant. And Uranus is to do with kind of explosive trends, and Gemini is to do with divisiveness, right? So America in itself is a divided country. It's always been a divided country, and it was divided at the Civil War, and it's kind of divided between North and South. It's now divided between mid-America and the coasts. It always has this tendency to be divided. That's one factor, I think, that makes it a divided country. Obviously, it doesn't help that Pluto kind of brings up a lot of material, of some about conspiracies. So that also divides people. There's also another thing. It's actually about the time of the election of Obama. And that was interesting, because if you make America's progressive horoscope, which is like the evolution of America as a kind of unit, at the time of Obama, Mars and Venus were exactly opposite each other in the chart. That only happens once, I don't know how, once in 1,000 years in America's chart or more. So that in itself, I think, creates the division. Mars and Venus is total polarities. And maybe also some kind of polarity between men and women, and that's a long-term influence, which kind of started with Obama. All right, I think there was much more divisiveness that began at that point in America in 2008. I think it. So I'm not 100% sure what all the factors are connected with divisiveness, but that's a couple of them at least.
Yeah. So I got another question. I think if people just tuning in right at the beginning of the conversation here, they might think that this is a kind of a continuing of a conversation that's been going on. But so I'm thinking that, can you tell us about yourself? I mean, how did you become an astrologer, your background, and how did you get out on that island?
Without being a merman.
Yeah.
Because I think,
I was a hippie, right? In the
okay.
60s.
All right.
I went to live. I knew, I was in.
You had longer hair.
I had very long hair. Yeah, I can share a picture if you like.
Oh yeah, do.
Yeah, I'll see if I can do that. Just a minute. I have to send a request to share, but if you
Okay.
if you grant that request, I will.
Okay.
Anyway, um, I went to India when I was 21, and I had some, like it was. I mean, the mid 60s.
So where did you grow up?
Oh well, my parents were in the Royal Air Force, right? So we moved around.
Okay.
So go all over England and Germany and a bit of France. Right?
Okay.
But then they put me in boarding school. This is all really good stories, but I think it has to be another podcast. Anyway, I turned on to astrology at the age of 21 in India. I had some transcendental experiences, which were life-changing. And, then I got kids. And I had to work. I had a shop in Liverpool, same street where the Beatles started.
Oh, wow.
And then I moved to Denmark with my Danish wife at the age of 30. And then I got into astrology. I became chairman of the Danish Astrology Society.
Huh.
Then it kind of astrology began to fill everything in my life. Really, that's all I do, and I'll carry on until I drop dead.
How did you end up on this island?
Well, the Danish tax system is a bit heavy. It's like, it's at least 50% tax.
Wow.
And I got a bit into trouble with the tax, because I'm a self-employed astrologer. It's easy to get in trouble, but it's not very supportive of entrepreneurs in Denmark, really. Anyway, I had to recover. And so I went to India for 3 years and made an office there. But, and I tried living in Nepal and Malta. But in the end, especially because my wife's a psychologist and she couldn't really work properly abroad. We returned, and then we came to this island, which was just cheaper to live. It's beautiful. It's the most beautiful part of Denmark. And so, I think I was like 69 or something like that. When I came, 69, 70. Yeah, 70 when I came home.
How far is it from the mainland of Denmark?
It's closer to Sweden.
Is it?
Yeah, maybe 100 kilometers to Sweden, and maybe 200 to Denmark, and 300 to Russia.
Wow.
And about 100 to Germany, and about 100 to Poland. It's like
okay.
So
to check it out, there was an explosion in the Russian pipeline just by Burma, because Ukrainians.
Let him finish.
Yeah.
There was a explosion. What?
Yeah, the Russians had an oil or gas pipeline to Germany, and the Ukrainians blew it up. We're just outside Burma.
Yeah. So does the Danish taxman follow you out to the island?
Oh yeah, you cannot get away in the Danish tax.
Right.
You just cannot, But you can talk to them,
So what's the population of the island?
Of Denmark or Bornholm?
No, where you're living.
30,000.
Oh, okay, so that's
30
pretty
or 40,000. Yeah, it's great. It's got everything, great internet coverage. It's got everything. Lovely swimming pool.
Yeah. So you spent some time in India. How come you didn't take up Vedic astrology?
Yeah. Well, Vedic astrology is like a huge subject, and it's very Indian. It's very Indian, and the Indians are kind of amazing people, right? And they've got all their different systems, right? I think Western, tropical Western astrology functions better both for us in the West and any Indians that come here.
Yeah.
And I have quite a few Indian clients. So,
I find Vedic very complicated and sort of, it doesn't seem to have any free.
Right?
Yeah.
And they have these remedies like saying 108 mantras every morning and stuff like that, So it doesn't really work so well if you've got some kind of Danish businessman you're trying to help.
Yeah. I had a Vedic astrology reading one time at an Indian festival, and it was very negative. Unfortunately, it was accurate too, but it was very negative.
Right. Well, they don't believe in the psychological approach, They don't. I mean that is like not part of it.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Well, they don't seem to believe in free will either.
No, and I think they've got a point. But for us in the West, thinking about free will is a kind of essential part of our nature.
To balance things out, we do have a Vedic astrologer coming on the podcast in a few weeks. So,
all right. Well, I mean,
we don't know how we're going to talk to her.
That we'll see.
Yeah, it's very different, So you can't really. There's not much you can apply from one system to another.
It really isn't. We've had 2 hurricanes hit Florida within 2 weeks. And one of them, Helene, caused damage and death in places that have never seen a hurricane before in Asheville, North Carolina. What do you attribute to all this violent weather to? Or is there an astrology reason?
I'm not sure. There are astrologers that work with astrometeorology, and they're expert on weather trends, I'm guessing. I certainly am not. I don't know, I mean, it's worth a study, really. I'm sure that, the naming of these hurricanes is also pretty significant.
Yeah.
I just don't really, recently there's been a Sun-Mars square. It's something that comes every 3 years or something like that. And it lasts for, several weeks. And it's currently a Sun-Mars square. I mean, that's not the reason there's a hurricane, but it's a very destructive aspect, which is why you're also seeing the stuff in Israel and Lebanon. And it's a very martial sort of, aggressive kind of. There's another thing about, I don't know if this is significant either. Right now, the planets are all placed in incredibly weak signs. I mean, some astrologers don't like to sort of say that the planets are strong in some signs and weak in others, but I'm not one of them. And right now, every planet, Sun, Mars, Venus, Saturn, they're all in, and Jupiter, they're all in weak signs. And, that in a way, it shows like there's not many good choices, Every choice has got its flaws. And I'm not sure if that's got much to do with hurricanes, but it's certainly not a very positive period.
So what do you see for the next 20 years for the United States and for the world?
With Pluto and Aquarius.
Yeah. Well, I think that people overrate the influence of politicians and politics, governments. Not that I'm talking about deep state, but it's just that it's not that makes the huge difference in society, because there's sort of systems and structures in place which are very difficult to change, So basically things keep going on as they go on. And what really makes changes is the technological advances, So, I mean, Facebook has had much greater influence than any government. So the main thing about what's happening now is as Pluto goes into Aquarius, Aquarius is related to the brain. It's a mental thing and it's a brain. And Pluto's connected with transformation of the brain, right? But it's also connected with robots, So you've got robot brains, and artificial intelligence is like a robot brain, in a way. So the advent of AI is the transformative influence over the next 20 years with Pluto and Aquarius. Not just that, electric cars, because Aquarius is very like electricity and very clean and very cool, and Pluto is batteries. Pluto is connected with batteries. It's the intense storage of power. So electric cars, after 20 years, the only cars that are being gas powered are going to be like collector's items that people are driving around. So that's going to change everything. Cities are going to become cleaner. Air pollution is going to disappear, which is not bad in America. But if you go to a place like Delhi or any African country, or that is really going to make a huge difference to life quality.
Is Delhi really that polluted?
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Really?
Unbelievable. You don't know what pollution is until you've gone to Delhi. But I found Kathmandu even worse in Nepal.
Really?
Yeah, because it's in the valley, so it all sits there, all the pollution. But Delhi is unbelievable. There's 27 million people in the city, right? When I went there in 1970, there were 3 million, So they were squashed in and they all want a car, And then they burn the rubbish on the streets, to clean the rubbish. They've probably got a lousy rubbish collection, right? And then they've got 1 million, actually probably 10 million motorbikes, which also put
in Mexico, they used to burn tires for festivals.
Right.
I think they've stopped that finally.
Right. I'm sure Mexico City's bad too.
Yeah, black smoke.
yeah, but they loved it, right? People loved it. Indians loved the pollution. We loved it in Britain. We have these smokestacks with power stations, coal power stations,
right?
And every city wanted its power station, right, with its coal stacks. Oh, and you got the smoke belching out. We had to get cigarettes to improve all that, right? What you're going to see with Pluto and Aquarius is the disappearance of smoke and the disappearance of fire. So nobody's smoking hardly, and nobody burning anything.
So it's an industrial revolution then too. Away from.
Yeah. I wonder if you would call it industrial.
I wouldn't call it industrial. It's the opposite of industrial.
Post-industrial.
Yeah, digital. I don't know what you call it really. It's a cool revolution. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. What astrologically led to Biden dropping out of the race?
Yeah, well, he had a really special winner combination in 2020.
Right.
It was really unique. It was like, I knew you'd win because of that. It was like just a once in a lifetime serendipity thing, right? And that's kind of faded out. So what you've got with Biden at the end, of course, he's like old, right? 82 or something. And, so he's fading, obviously. But his ascendant, if you're looking at horoscope, this is evolution of the horoscope, and the progressed horoscope is moving through the signs really slowly. And the last 20 years, it's been in Aquarius. And now the ascendant next year or the year after moves into Pisces. It's the last sign. It's like, let me retire. It's tired. Well, it's tired at the end of Aquarius, and then it goes into retirement. So that was one thing. But the clincher was his moon, I think. It's a 1 Taurus, is that correct? It's a 1 degree Taurus. Pluto squares the moon now. And Pluto is like eviction, and the moon is like home or the White House, So Pluto to the moon is like he has to move, so he's not going to continue in the White House.
Huh. Yeah, I thought it was a pretty selfless thing to do.
Yeah, it was the right thing to do. Thank God.
Yeah.
And actually, not to blow my own trumpet, but I just looked at 2 old articles that I read where I actually sort of suggested that Kamala Harris would be taking over, and that she had a winner combination, whereas Biden did not have a winner combination.
But Biden's luck actually began before the election. Just to get the nomination, it was a miracle that he even got the nomination, because Bernie Sanders was all in. It looked like who was going to be the nomination and the nominee, and then it just happened in South Carolina. He got support. Biden got support there, and everything flipped from there, and he got in.
Yeah, that's right. It was really lucky, wasn't it? In South Carolina, wasn't it?
Because he had lost all the early.
Yeah, that's right.
Primaries, yeah.
But in a sense, the astrology is it's tempting to, as an astrologer, you might be tempted to look at facts on the ground, right? But actually, you should be looking at the horoscope theoretically, if you're any good at it, anyway. Because things, you can't know what surprise is going to come if you're not looking at the horoscope. But if you're looking at the horoscope, you can see what surprises may be coming. There's no such thing as a surprise, really, because surprises are Uranus in the horoscope. So you know when there's a surprise on the way.
Well, I always get a kick out of the news. I always saying, what's the October surprise going to be? And I thought, there isn't always an October surprise. I mean, they make things up and,
It's true. Well, who knows? There may be, but I think we're too close now for anything to move the needle.
Right. Yeah. So here's a question for you, Adrian. If somebody just stumbled upon this podcast who is not knowledgeable or interested in astrology and have some some knowledge of it, they say, why are you talking about Pluto? Pluto isn't even a planet anymore.
I got an interesting, I hope I haven't told this story before, but I've got an interesting story about that because it's a weird story, so prepare yourself.
That's all right.
It's in Austria, which is a weird country already. And there was this girl called Natasha Kampusch who was kidnapped at the age of 10. And she was kept in an underground room by this guy called Pricklepitch. Anyway, on the very day, and there was a conference in Austria which demoted Pluto to be a dwarf planet. And on the very day they demoted Pluto, this Natasha Kampusch escaped from her underground imprisonment, and Pricklepitch committed suicide. And anybody who knows that Pluto myth knows that Pluto captured Venus or Persephone and took her down into the Hades underground. So it was like Pluto saying, well, you might have demoted me, but this is the fact, right?
Jeez, that's pretty bizarre.
Yeah, so that's really, really incredible story.
Huh. And that's a true story.
So it doesn't matter anyway, Rob, about that demotion, really. That's what astronomers have decided. It doesn't really matter. The solar system is a kind of cohesive whole, and everything going on in there is significant.
Can I ask something to follow up on that?
Of course.
So what happens? There's, as long as I can remember, talk about a hidden planet. What if we do discover another planet? I think it's unlikely personally, but there are people looking for it. That somehow it has stayed. Somehow it's remained hidden.
Discovered large planets outside of Pluto. There's Eris, and there's quite a lot. They've discovered planets in the outer reaches of the solar system. And there are astrologers who are integrating that into their interpretation. I don't really understand them. I haven't got a feeling for them, so I don't know. But I'm sure it's significant to take them into account.
Okay.
Okay. What's in store for Trump? He didn't disappear after his loss in 2020. So
he didn't have troubles, though. He lost prestige, and there were things that people sort of, but he kind of came back amazingly, isn't it? Amazing. Yeah. So, but he's going to lose now, isn't he? He's going to lose again, and he's going to do the same thing again.
Mm-hmm. So there'll be a repeat of J6, January 6th, another insurrection or something worse.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe not on January the 6th, but...
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe more towards the middle of 25, there could be some, kind of a mini civil war, call it a revolution.
Yeah, right. I mean, I hate to talk about stuff like war, but, America, as I mentioned, has Uranus on the descendant at 8 degrees Gemini, and Uranus has a cycle of 84 years. Where at the Civil War in 1861, Uranus returned to its 8 degrees Gemini, and now again in 2027 it will return to 8 degrees Gemini, and also Uranus is being activated in America's progressed horoscope. There are many activations of Uranus. Therefore, I think that there will be no peace and harmony in America in the Kamala Harris period. There are also the inauguration horoscope shows a deep chasm in the country. I think. Yeah, so you have to hang on in there, I think.
Should we move to your island?
Well, you're welcome, but Europe's so unwelcoming to other. You know, I can't get into America, and you can't get into Europe.
Yeah.
Oh God.
You can go to Canada.
Yeah, that's true. Except it's too cold.
Oh, yeah. Where are you based?
We're in Florida,
South Florida.
which right now is
okay.
just
Well,
besieged by hurricanes. So
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you don't want to go somewhere cold. I understand.
yeah, doesn't. However, okay, so you basically see a revolution going on for a period of into 2027.
Yeah, 2027, 28. So until the next election. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a revolution, but
it's a lot of unrest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
So
certainly doesn't look very good. I mean, but times have changed since 1861.
Yeah, hopefully.
So were the two assassination attempts on Trump something that could be seen in his chart?
Yeah, I think, there was. I didn't see that, but I read some astrology who kind of warned, about it. And the thing is about Trump, you see, what happens is that he's gone a midheaven. That's the career point of the chart,
Right.
The 10th house. It's at 24 or 25 degrees Taurus. And actually, at that point, there's a star called Algol. And the Algol is, traditionally to do with beheading, stuff like that. I mean, obviously, everyone gets beheaded with that. But anyway, Uranus, this aforementioned Uranus, is exactly on its MC. And it stays there for about a year. And I think Mars came and activated that Uranus at the time of the assassination attempt. Maybe even Mercury, I can't quite remember now. So yeah, it was, but it was predictable in a way, but you're never going to really know, are you, as an astrologer? And you don't want to say really, but I suppose, a smart astrologer would have said, maybe that's a danger.
As living with an astrologer, I notice oftentimes that Trish always sees these things in a chart after they happen,
Yeah. Well,
it's much easier.
Yeah. And that's all right, because you learn, to learn from what you see. Yeah. And sometimes then occasionally you manage to predict something before it happens.
Yeah. Sometimes. Okay, so Kamala and Walz win not just the popular vote, but the electoral college vote too?
Well, they have to win the popular vote. I don't think any Republicans have won it since maybe Bush won the popular vote. But
mostly they've gotten in by the electoral college.
Yeah, right. And of course, that's a little bit unfair towards Democrats. But of course, they're going to win the electoral college because Kamala Harris is going to win. If she doesn't win, I don't think you'll be inviting me back. But I'm guessing. I'm pretty sure she's going to win. I don't think she's going to win by all this talk about it being dead heat. I don't believe that.
The polls seem to me. Yeah, the polls seem to me to be deceptive in a lot of ways.
So I reckon. I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but. It could possibly be that the Democrats win the House and the Senate, right? I mean, I that would be interesting. But anyway, whatever happens, I'm sure that Trump is going to say it's a stolen election.
Yeah, that's for sure. He already is even before even before the first vote was cast. He said that it was already.
Yeah, right. It's weird. It's really weird.
Do you see him going to prison?
He didn't appoint all these high court judges. I mean, in the end, he'll appeal to the Supreme Court. I don't think he'll go to prison.
Yeah.
No, so he won't be beheaded that way with Joel.
Yeah,
maybe.
But he's probably die, at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I'm not. That's not a prediction. I'm just saying.
It's
inevitable. He'll die fighting.
It's inevitable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you first came on. I don't know if you came on the podcast, but I think maybe you did in 2016 because I think you gave.
We didn't have a podcast in 2016.
Really?
It didn't start till 2020.
I think I've been on the podcast twice with you guys. Though.
But we didn't start till what 2020. Yeah,
started during COVID.
Yeah. But yeah, see, we have had him on before. Yes.
Yeah.
So I get, but you might have been in contact with Trish in 2016 because I think, as I recall, that you thought Hillary was going to beat Trump that year.
Yeah,
that was.
I did, but that was basically stupidity on my part because Trump had a wonderful horoscope for winning, and I deliberately ignored the evidence because you just don't want to predict something you don't want to happen.
Exactly.
It's like you cannot. It's a rule I've got after a while anyway. That if I can predict something I really don't want to happen, I do not predict it because I start ending up wanting that person to win to prove my prediction. And so I stopped doing that. But yeah, I mean, the only defense I've got is I said that the president in 2016 would be a one-term president.
Okay, all right, that's good.
That's good. Well, what do you foresee for Ukraine and this whole mess there?
What a mess! It's a terrible thing. You probably don't feel it so much in.
No, but I'm sure you do.
But in Europe, I mean, I don't know, 4 or 5 million Ukrainians have left Ukraine, right? Mostly kids, mothers and kids, right? So the men are fighting and dying like crazy, right? It's a terrible thing. But it's worse for Russia, right, in a sense, because they've lost 500,000 men, probably at least 150 killed, like the rest of it. 150,000 killed. Right? I mean, so the end game in Ukraine is simply that there'll be a revolution in Russia. And that revolution is going to take place within a couple of years, I think. And that's going to happen fast. So historically,
you see
changes in Russia have happened over just a few days.
You see that astrologically in Russia?
Yeah, definitely, because there's a certain Neptune conjunction cycle. There's one in 1917, the revolution in 1953 when Stalin died, 1989 when the start of the dissolution of the Soviet Union, and the next one is in 2020, 5 to 6. And that's like a major. I mean, Putin's a pretty powerful man, but I don't think I think that the trends in Russia is going to be a kind of almost maybe a civil war or something like that, which gets rid of him. Because I mean, the mothers of Russia were pretty upset at the deaths in Afghanistan, like when there was about 20, 30, 40,000 Russian soldiers killed. This time, like there's huge deaths. Of course, most of it has been from the outer provinces of Russia. Not so much from Moscow and St. Petersburg and that. But he's recruiting, more and more soldiers. There's going to be more and more discontent. It's an odd thing, because if you're a Russian soldier and you get killed, I think the family gets $50,000 or something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so people in Russia are kind of flush with money at the moment. It's kind of, the economy is booming. But it's like a short-term kind of fix, isn't it? I think like 500,000 educated Russians have left the country. What a brain drain that is. So Russia's like, and then NATO is like vastly increased along the border with Russia and Finland and Sweden, So basically, Putin has totally failed in what he's been doing. He'll get thrown out.
What's his chart
then
say?
I think Ukraine will reconstitute itself.
Well, what does Putin's chart say?
yeah, it's not too bad. There are some kind of indication. It's some progresses on Mars, right now or earlier this year. It's like so warlike. It's amazing. But it's not great. I mean, it's like the war period is drawing to a close. If his chart time is correct, then I think something's happening on this. There's some kind of civil war thing going on. He's got Moon in 3 degrees Gemini in the 8th house. Uranus is going to come on now in about 2 or 3 years. That looks a little bit like civil war. So I don't think he'll survive.
What about Zelensky?
Yeah, I don't think he'll survive past next year.
Oh, really?
Well, I mean, he might survive, but I think he might be ousted. So I think one option is, I'm not sure now, I'm guessing a little bit, but one option is that there's a kind of peace treaty where Ukraine gives up the land that's occupied by Russia. It's sort of temporary. And Zelensky gets thrown out because it's an unpopular decision. Then there's a revolution in Russia. Then the whole thing is then I'm really sure that Ukraine gets integrated in the European Union by the end of this decade, and then I'm guessing they'll get that land back. Because of the total chaos in Russia. Historically, when there's been chaos in Russia, like after the Second World War, for example, and the First World War also, Russia kind of lost territory, and everything changed. And it's the people who kind of refused to fight. And so I think that that they won't care. Russian people won't care about land in Ukraine. That's my guess. Ukraine will reclaim it.
I think for the successful revolution or overthrowing of Putin's government, it's got to be like a mass action rather than one individual standing out in front of everybody else. Because Alexei Navalny, he was a great leader, but he was doomed. I mean,
I agree with you. But I think it's more likely to be these oligarchs that get rid of him because of the suffering or the Russia, that Russia goes through. And then the oligarchs themselves are just so unpopular they kind of get overthrown. It's a bit like when Gorbachev was overthrown. And I don't know if you remember, but there were some military Russian leaders who tried to take power. And they were so pathetic that they kind of...
I vaguely recall that, yeah.
Did you ever look at Navalny's chart while you're still
I think alive? I did look at it, but I can't remember it now.
Okay.
Sorry. It's a very... He did a typical Russian job, of going to jail and sacrificing himself.
Right.
Awesome. Well, what else do you see for the world, Adrian, in 2020? Well, I mean, are we ever going to have peace in the world? I mean...
Yeah, I'm a believer in that. I think that, I think that it's more and more difficult to go to war. Like, a few thousand years ago, you kind of killed the people in the next village, didn't you?
Yeah.
And then you kill the people in the next county, and then you kill the people in the next country, and it's becoming a very, very globalized world, right? And everybody gets affected. Everyone's living everywhere. Everybody can speak the same language, through apps and stuff. And everybody's filming atrocities in real time, and nobody wants to see that stuff, right? So, I mean, it's obviously not happening now, but I think maybe in about 100 years, maybe, there's a kind of thing where wars become virtual in some way, like a chess match. And then there's a universal kind of UN kind of decision thing, which sort of decides what's what. I mean, I believe that. So I'm not I think that war will end. And just because we've always had war doesn't mean it won't end.
Right.
Like the world has never been like it is today, so unified, and it's going to be much, much more unified. And you know, of course, there'll always be psychopaths around. You know, but I think as the world gets leveled up, I think there might be less inclination. You know, it's already silly. It's already silly to invade a country. Everybody knows Russia was silly to invade Ukraine. You know, it's like old-fashioned.
Yeah, it is. It's
yeah, yeah. You know, it's like trying to recreate an old empire. But that I don't believe that's going to be the case. You know,
Yeah.
and I'm not particularly worried about China either.
There is that biblical prediction about 1,000 years of peace after the Antichrist is dealt with, and you know, we can pick a lot of pick a lot of people for that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. So you know, I think, you know, because we're moving into a new age, you know, the Aquarian age. It's not perfect, but it's very certain.
What about
people
ETs?
are united.
What about ETs? Will they arrive in the Aquarian age?
Well, yeah, I think first of all, you have to think about how. I mean, I think there's like countless inhabited planets.
I agree.
It's stupid to think that there are not. You know, you wouldn't. The Earth isn't like just happens to be
the only place.
You know, and in Buddhist teaching also, they say there are innumerable worlds, which means they're not like 100,000, but like absolutely uncountable number of inhabited worlds. But the difficulty is just moving from one solar system to another, I think. And I think, you know, first of all, you don't know that we're not already, you know, like there's people or beings like, enlightened beings, you know, on Earth. I think there are. I think there's many, many enlightened beings on Earth, you know, much more enlightened than we are. And they're not going to make a huge kind of, not going to sort of come clean and say, hey, look, we're enlightened beings.
Yeah.
Because that wouldn't really work. You know, they're just helping us out. I think we're getting a lot of help, basically. So I'm not particularly worried about the end of the world or anything. You know, I think that it's pretty much under control. But, you know, so would extraterrestrials arrive in a spaceship? There's a lot of technical difficulties involved with that. I wouldn't think it was necessary somehow. You know, they might be able to project themselves at that.
Right.
Yeah, some kind of, you know,
interdimensional.
Yeah, right. In astrology, the moon's nodes have this quality of being like wormholes. You know, and wormholes is like you can suddenly, you know, Star Trek-like go from one thing to another. I mean, it's possible. I mean, it's just a technical difficulty about whether there's ETs. I think, you know, would they come? Would they come physically? Would they show themselves? Etc.
Well, so Trish may have torpedoed my next question, because I was going to say, so since we're throwing you the softballs, you know, will there be world peace? Will we be visited by ETs? What I was going to ask is, do you see anything that suggests we'll become the ET? Where do you see anything to suggest that we will further that we'll explore space?
I think you need to get Elon Musk on the program.
He seems pretty determined, but yeah.
No, I also think he'll make it to Mars. You know, I think he'll make it to Mars, definitely, and I think that's going to happen around 2035, 6, 7, something. Yeah. So that's a really difficult job, getting to Mars.
Oh yeah.
Getting outside of the solar system. We've actually got Voyager 1 and 2. They actually reached the edge of the solar system, haven't they? And they're out of the heliosphere, which is this kind of integrated energy field that the sun has. Right? Well, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I mean, we have people working on it. Technology is continuing to accelerate. You know, just in my lifetime, we've gone from a computer taking up a whole floor of a building to carrying it around on our wrists, basically. So
Right.
Yeah.
That's so true.
So yeah.
So I think things are
I
getting
think
smaller and smaller, aren't
I
they?
think
Sort of more.
yeah. But I think the major problem getting to Mars is just going to be keeping people alive. In the once they get outside of the once they get out into deep space, just being able to keep the human being alive due to the radiation and the accelerated particles and stuff. So.
Yeah. Have you seen that film with Matt Damon about Mars? I can't remember.
Oh, The
it is now.
Martian?
The Martian, yeah.
The Martian is a great movie.
I love that film.
Yeah.
I just love that film.
Great book, too.
Potatoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. And he had a bath. I loved it that he had a hot bath.
Yeah.
There's an interesting story about him. He couldn't find a publisher, and he wrote this book online. And the book got so many downloads that a publisher finally picked him up, and then Matt Damon, was in the movie. It's kind of one of those success stories that you love.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
So, but there's also the question about like on whether we reincarnate on Earth, because I've met quite a few people who claim that they're and they're not stupid people, like they're teachers and stuff, who come from Sirius. I've had one guy come from Sirius. Several people they reckon they're from Mars and all that, and to me they look like they are. They actually look like that.
So they say they reincarnated
you could just
there?
theoretically reposition yourself by reincarnation. I think that's possible.
Yeah.
So these people from Sirius that they say they reincarnated on Sirius. Is that?
No, they came from Sirius and reincarnated.
Oh, I see. Okay, reincarnated.
Yeah. Well, I only know one guy. He was in the military. He was he was a teacher of NLP, actually. He was just like totally sensible guy, really, and he looked like he came from Sirius, and his wife thought he was crazy because he said he came from Sirius, and I said, well, you look like you come from Sirius, and he got all excited, because I was the first person to recognize he may have come from Sirius.
That's pretty cool.
So Adrian, the one thing we kind of we touched on it and skipped over, was the whole revolution that's coming with AI, artificial intelligence. Good or bad for you? How do you see that astrologically? I mean,
well, it's it doesn't really matter whether it's good or bad. It's Pluto coming into Aquarius, right? So it's happening, and so there's no way around that's going to happen. And after 20 years, something else is going to happen. But in this 20-year period,
are we going to
AI is going to take over? It depends. Do you think lawyers are great because it's going to take over lawyers' work? Do you think accountants are great because it's going to take over a lot of that work? Do you think it's great paying people to write copy for you because AI is going to do it just as well? I don't know, it's going to change things. That's the thing.
Well, what about when Pluto goes into Pisces? Then what's that period going to be like?
I'm really sure that is going to be the whole thing about sea level rising, ecology, and climate change. And then that period was going to be about 25 years, probably, with Pluto and Pisces. There's going to be huge worldwide efforts to mitigate climate change, because
a little late
of increased disasters. Yeah, late, but it's just ready. Because nobody's going to be questioning anything at that point.
Yeah.
And I think at about 2047 or something like that, Pluto and Neptune, could it really be true? Or opposition or something like that.
Oh, really?
Well, anyway, I seem to think there's some huge opposition to Pluto in Pisces, and that could, that's going to be some disaster, some disaster that needs to be reversed. Like ocean currents changing.
Right. What year is that? 2047, you said.
I think around that time, yeah, you might check out the aspects there.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I can do that just a bit. That's tricky. Could be Uranus opposite Pluto. I think it must be Uranus opposite Pluto. Yeah, it is. Yeah, there. I opened it right up the page. May 2020, 48, but it's something that'll last about 3 years. Pluto 7 Pisces and Uranus 7 Virgo. So that's a huge sort of ecological big deal transformation.
We'll get back to you in 2040.
Yeah.
And
actually, I'd be around. I'd only be 98 or something like that. I'll be cool.
All right, sounds good.
Where will we be? That's the question.
Yeah. Well, thank you
You'll
for
probably
joining
still
us.
be.
Thank you for joining us again.
Adrian, tell people where they can find your books and your website.
Yeah. Well, people should go to, if they wish, to astrowow.com. www.
That's a great website.
Wow.com. And they get a load of stuff there, and a lot of it's free, and some of it's not, because I need to live. But I give as much as I can, to help people understand their charts.
Plus, you have to pay those Danish taxes.
Yeah, I'm right. You wouldn't believe how much of it compared to America. But you see, the thing is, and maybe we can finish on that note. The thing is, in America, the inequality is phenomenal.
That's true.
People are struggling on a minimum wage. So sometimes they just have to take 2 jobs to get by. This would never happen in Denmark. It's true, there's a few homeless people you see in the street, because they want to be. But, they could just go to the council and say, look, house us, they'll be ours. So, or medical treatment, nobody pays for anything, if they get ill.
That's great.
Or university.
That's the real drawback here.
Yeah.
Like our daughter can't afford. Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't have a job, right? And the people in America who've got good jobs on the West Coast and the East Coast, right? They got their medical insurance, etc. So it's a terrible thing with that inequality, and America loves it. It's not going to leave it. It's not going to go to a Danish tax system overnight. Because Americans love their freedom. But, in the end, their freedom the freedom of a lot of Americans is totally limited by their economic and social circumstances.
Yeah,
that's true.
So, Adrian, one final question. Could you explain that picture behind you?
Oh, wow, Rob. Rob, that's what I was about to I was about to jump in with that, because I was like, we need an explanation, because anybody that watches this on YouTube is going to have been staring at it just like I am, wondering what it is. And I want to make a guess. I'm assuming that's maybe from your time in India, but
well, yeah. Actually, this is it. First of all, it's a calligraphy, and all it spells is astrology.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and it's signed here down at the bottom. You can see that.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's signed by Siddha Rinpoche, and Siddha Rinpoche is my Buddhist guru or teacher. And he's one of the 4 lineage holders of the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. So he's a really high Lama, and he made that calligraphy, and I got hold of it. So I'm very pleased.
Did he teach you astrology?
No, but he does astrology, actually. But, Tibetan astrology is even weirder than Vedic. But he loves the fact that I'm an astrologer. He says, "Oh, very good." Yeah. I mean, he thinks that's great, right?
That's so cool.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, John, when's this going up?
Okay, well, keep up.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh,
find out.
Now it'll be a week from Sunday, I believe. So a week from this coming Sunday. Yes.
I'll send you the link. Adrian.
Okay, thanks everybody. Keep up.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
thanks a lot.
Yeah,
and don't drown.
No, I'm not going to.
Okay.